Hey everyone, today we have a really special episode of Asia Drinking. I sat down with Arathorn Grey, who is the head bartender at Tippling Club. Now, for those who don't know, Tippling Club is an award-winning fine dining restaurant in Singapore helmed by Chef Ryan Clift, and it's known for, having really inventive gourmet dishes and cocktails. This year, Arathorn personally created Tippling Club's latest cocktail menu called A Guide to Modern Drinking Volume 3, 6 Decades of Music. Now in it, there's 18 different cocktails that each pay homage to a unique song from the 1940s all the way to the 1990s in a very unique and tasty way. And we find out a bit more about the inspiration behind that, as well as learn more about Arathorn's experiences in the bar industry, what kind of trends he sees in the cocktail scene going forward. So if you're a bar lover, you won't want to miss this. Let's get started. Hi everyone, today I'm here with Arathorn Grey, who is the head bartender at Tippling Club in Singapore. And Tippling Club is actually an award-winning restaurant and bar in Asia that's really known for being very innovative in the kind of cocktails and food that it serves up. So I guess first off, thanks so much Arathorn for being here with us. I wanted to congratulate you as I think currently, Tippling Club is showcasing its current menu, which is A Guide to Modern Drinking Volume 3, 6 Decades of Music, and this is actually your first menu as Tippling Club's head bartender. And what's special about this menu is that it highlights music from the 1940s to the 1990s through the kind of different cocktails that it serves up. So could you tell us a bit more about the process that you went through behind creating this menu? What made you decide that you wanted to use music as the focal point?
I think music was kind of an obvious choice for me to do a menu concept from. Music has always played quite a big part in my life. Growing up, I started playing the classical guitar when I was quite young. Went up to about grade 5 in the exams. And then in secondary school, I was actually in the marching band playing the tenor saxophone as well. And after that, fell into cheerleading in Polytechnic, and that was kind of like having a bit of music while you're performing. And then all those little experiences and occasions throughout my life really led me up to being behind the bar today. Like cheerleading, you're performing and as people are watching you, you only got one round to really put your best, your 100%. And behind the bar now is like, for me, it's a stage. I've got music playing in the background. People are watching you, and you do screw up every now and then, but it's more about the recovery of like just keep going, and it's a fun kind of accumulation of events from my life that just led me to where I am now today. So I think music being the menu now was quite obvious, and I've always enjoyed listening to a lot of music. Growing up, listening to a lot of oldies stuff, like more like Beatles, ABBA, Bee Gees, stuff like that. But through this job and through being at Tippling Club, I've discovered a lot more tunes, a lot more old classics, and just doing a playlist also is really nice fun for me and the guests.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting from this is that you have always been sort of like a performer in different ways throughout your life, and I guess now this menu is a manifestation of that. And I think like what's special about this menu is that there's really a lot of like attention to detail put into the kind of cocktails, the way you categorize them into different decades, and there's a lot of like mini touches that goes into it. For example, like one of the things I find really quite inspired is that for the 60s themed cocktails, which was, you wanted it to reflect the hippie era funk and soul style music of that decade, and so you incorporate a lot more herbs into these cocktails. So what's like a surprising fact that you learned about a particular decade during your research for this menu, and how did that influence, I guess, different types of cocktails that you created?
For me, I think one of the more interesting ones was definitely the 70s. One of the songs that I listed on the menu is called Captain Fantastic and a Brown Cowboy, which is a song by Elton John. And I don't think it's a very commonly known Elton John song. And when I stumbled upon that song, I was basically doing tons of research for different songs where I can create a drink from. And for me, that song was very country style, and that was a very interesting variant of all the different songs. I try to keep the songs a bit diverse, right? So because it's very country style song, I try to try to make a drink that's a bit more dirty, a bit more rugged, and just using a bit more peculiar ingredients, or rather have the flavor taste that way. So for this drink, it's actually a mezcal based cocktail. And wanted to have a bit of burnt butter, like almost like caramel flavors to it. A bit of sunflower seeds. I'm just thinking, oh, this is probably outback in America. It's like in the middle of the desert land, very dry style area. So mezcal, a bit of sunflower seeds, and a bit of burnt butter. And then a little bit of honey, because I think honey is a preservative and it doesn't go bad, so I guess people over there, they will use a lot of honey. And of course, within the song itself, he actually lists a couple of ingredients that I actually can work with already. Like we've got apples, we've got honey, and wallflowers. So those gave me a good starting point to sort of create a drink from. And yeah, just basically working with whatever I have, using different techniques that I know, or I can consult Chef Ryan with different styles or different methods of creating the cocktail as well. So this song was definitely interesting because it's a bit more unexpected in terms of flavor. So it's not the most easy to drink cocktail, I admit, but I think when you listen to the story, it ties it all together.
It actually sounds really delicious. I like that you incorporated mezcal. I've noticed that more and more.
Yeah.
All the craft cocktails, they feature mezcal and it adds that very nice smokiness to it. And I like that you complemented it with the burnt butter. It's really quite nice, I can imagine. Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting. Like, how do you, if I could like veer off a bit, I think like when you start to approach like each individual decade, right? How do you even start to find a list of songs to start looking at?
Oh, so this talking about R&D. This one really took up most of the time in creating the menu before actually starting on the drinks first. So a lot of time was spent on curating a list of songs that I wanted to work with. And when I'm looking for songs, I'm also looking for things that actually can sort of give me a direction into how I can create a drink. So I probably look for song titles that have food names, or maybe an artist name that has some sort of connection with food or beverage, or just give me some sort of creative outlet. Or maybe even within the lyrics of the song, like the Turn Fantastic and a Brown Cowboy, or maybe even how the song makes me feel. So there is a couple of avenues when I'm looking for songs that can help me create a drink from. And basically I had to counter check because of course artists, they might have song periods that cover two different decades. Like maybe Michael Jackson, he has songs in the 80s and the 90s. So when I'm finding a song, I need to fact check that the song that I chose to be on the menu comes from that particular decade. So that was quite intensive. I don't want to just put a song and just put it in a decade that it's going to be inaccurate.
Yeah. I can imagine you got like a lot of bang out of your buck for your Spotify subscription those few months.
Yeah. I mean, I got like 50 different playlists on my own already, and then maybe about 10 is in the Tippling Club's playlist. I've got a few of my own.
Yeah.
Some I listen to sleep, some I just listen when I'm at home.
Yeah.
Just different stuff.
So actually, could you share with us, like, out of the cocktails on Tippling Club's menu right now, is there one cocktail that is very elaborate and actually requires like a surprising amount of effort, time and ingredients for the bartender to make?
I think the drink would be Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. Because the drink, I wanted it to be like a clear drink. It's like a clarified drink, but we don't use any clarification process for the whole cocktail, not like a milk punch. But we clarify individual ingredients to make the drink. So for this cocktail, the base is white rum. We actually supposed to be using Italicus, which is a bergamot liqueur, and a bit of sudachi, kind of a cordial. With the sudachi is a Japanese type of lime, and then a bit of grapefruit bitters. So it's quite a citrusy forward drink. Looks like a martini but doesn't taste like it. So that was kind of like the idea of creating that cocktail as well and connecting it to the song, because the idea for the drink is we serve it with a small mirror on top of the drink. And the idea we tell the guests is pick up the mirror and take a look at yourself. And then this is what people see on the outside, on the surface. But what people don't realize is all the things that's going on the individuals inside that, is what really is more precious and what people should be appreciating about themselves, and other people should be appreciating about you as well. So likewise, the drink looks quite clear, it looks quite boring in some sense, looks like water, but there's lots of flavors going on in there that I think is really what people should be appreciating. And the technique comes in when I first had to clarify sudachi, it being a citrus, being a puree. How to make it not cloudy is we use a process called agar clarification. Basically, it's like the thing that you use to make agar-agar, like the jelly. You just cook it with a bit of water, and then you pour the puree in there, and just cook it a little bit more, set it over a tray of ice, and then it turns to slight jelly, and then we can start to strain it over a very fine cheesecloth. So it starts to drip through the clarified sudachi, and then we just slightly sweeten it with a bit of sugar.
I see.
And then with the Italicus, apparently now in Singapore it's no longer being sold, and we had to find a way to create our own Italicus as well. So using the same method, using agar, you took a bergamot puree, did the same process of clarification, and then tried to fine-tune the flavors of the bergamot, clarified bergamot, to create Italicus from it. So I found that infusing a bit of grapefruit peels in there helped to hone in towards the flavor of Italicus, and also just of course a bit of sugar and a bit of vodka to bring up the alcohol level, just to make it all what it was meant to be tasting like at the start.
Okay, I can understand why this one is the most time intensive one.
Yeah, so many ingredients, elements to it.
Right, okay. Is there a cocktail that you find the most fun to make?
Most fun would be, I think, will be the easiest one to make because it's literally just putting everything together and just putting it
Especially
in a
on a
bottle.
very busy night shift, right?
Yeah, I mean, for us, because we are open in the daytime and the daytime is usually our prep time, we don't get that much bar traffic. Of course, we have a lunch crowd, and sometimes the lunch people, they do order a couple of drinks here and there. But the daytime is usually for us to really prep everything for night service, where it gets really, really busy. So the easiest drink for us, well, the most fun and the easiest drink for us to make is Learning the Blues by Frank Sinatra. So Frank Sinatra famously drinks Jack on the Rocks, and likewise we serve the cocktail full strength, no dilution, very classic with an orange twist. And this one we use American rye whiskey as the base, a bit of Amontillado sherry, which is a type of Spanish fortified wine, a bit of Puntemes, which is Italian Amaro, also giving a nod to his Italian heritage as an artist, and also a bit of bitters. And it's very spirit forward, almost like an in-between of an old-fashioned and a Manhattan. And how we treat the cocktail is we actually put it through a series of barrels. So we have 3 barrels just behind on the bar over there. And basically, when we get the barrels fresh, we have to soak it with hot water first for about 2 weeks, just to sort of swell up the wood. And then we dump the water, and then the extra step that I choose to do is to actually fill it up with port wine first. So I soaked it with ruby port wine for another 2 weeks, and then dump out the port wine. Of course, I still reuse it. And then I start the aging of the cocktail inside the barrels. So what happens is it gets a bit porty, a bit fruitiness to it. And then it's not as oaky as you would imagine a barrel-aged cocktail to be, which I feel like maybe it's not the easiest thing to drink as well. There will be, I mean, if you're really liking like super woody, smoky style drinks, then that might be something. But I wanted something to be palatable to the masses, and surprisingly, a lot of the females here as well, they enjoy this drink because I just feel like, barrel aging, it softens the cocktail. Even though we don't dilute it at all, it softens the cocktail quite a lot. And the fact that we actually have 3 barrels working in at the same time, we do a Solaris system aging, which means the barrel right at the end of the bar, we empty that into the bottle, and that goes into the glass, but we never fully empty the barrel. So we top up that last barrel with the subsequent barrel, and then so on and so forth with the 3rd barrel. So if ever we make a fresh batch of the cocktail, we put it up in the last barrel, and then it travels through the 3 barrels before it actually goes into the glass.
Actually, I can imagine like if over time the flavors develop, right, it gets better and better throughout the year.
Yeah, exactly. So before the liquid before you actually have the glass, the cocktail has already been sitting in the barrels for at least a month and a half or 2 months.
Wow, that's awesome.
At most. Because I mean, it is a 3-liter barrel. It takes a bit of time for us to go through that many drinks. So it is a good way to make the drinks very consistent, and over time, like maybe even after a course of a year, whatever you have in your glass is probably a 1-year-old barrel-aged cocktail, which not many places can say that they have that.
So actually, the cocktail you think is the easiest to make is actually still something that takes a huge amount of time.
It is a bit of time, but I mean, we have to plan in advance. So like when we first put in the cocktail in the barrel, it was back in September.
Oh, okay.
So it's close, I mean, about more than half a year now it's been sitting in there.
Wow.
So there will be a bit of it that's already 6 months old.
Interesting. Okay, that's really quite interesting. One of the rare few occasions I've heard of like the bar barrel aging their own cocktails. That's amazing. Okay. So I think like we've talked a bit about your love for music and how it's inspired this menu, and you're also a pretty prolific Spotify playlist curator. So many of your playlists actually have very funny and very charming themes. So one of my favorites that I saw was the Tippling Club Volume 23, CJ is Always Right, which is a playlist dedicated to Tippling Club's manager, CJ De Torres. So I just want to understand a bit more what's your approach towards curating these playlists, and because I think a lot of these playlists are played in Tippling Club, so it does enhance the guest experience. So how do you curate the music that you play in the restaurant and bar?
My very first playlist I made for Tippling Club, this was back in, I guess, pretty much just a year ago, which was volume 18, A Guitar Walks Into a Bar. And that was basically when I created, I already had an idea of what I want to call the playlist, and A Guitar Walks Into a Bar. Basically, every single song in that playlist actually starts off with a guitar or ends off with a guitar, or there will be a guitar element in the playlist. So I feel like that creates a consistent listening experience throughout the entire playlist. But then, of course, over time, I can't be looking for all piano songs, all guitar songs, and whatever. So, like, that was pretty much how I started off curating the songs. I was looking for, like, of course, low BPM songs, which is slower songs, and then it just so progressively went into higher, more upbeat towards the end of the night. And it's been getting very, very good feedback so far. I've got a couple of likes on my playlist as well, which is nice. I mean, I really appreciate people appreciating the music as well. So it's a very international thing. Like, you don't have to be American for you to appreciate American style music and all that. It's just music is so international, and that's something also why I love bartending, because alcohol bartending is also an international language that everybody can enjoy. So creating the playlist, that is something that I've always taken a lot of pride in, taken a lot of pleasure in creating as well. Before, I was very systematic in creating the playlist. I literally, every 10 songs, I will actually count how many minutes it goes on for, and then I will see how long the playlist actually goes on for. Now I've done it a couple of times. Basically, I just throw like about 110 songs in there, and then I just start arranging them according to the BPM. If I find that the song doesn't really suit this playlist, I will just take it out, or I'll just find a replacement for it. So now it's a little bit quicker for me to come out with a new playlist, although now I've got quite a good set of playlists that we can play every night, and it's still different for us, especially the staff. We are listening to the music every day. So now I've got a good set of playlists, like about 6 or 7 for us to play, one for lunch and one for dinner every day. So it's a nice change of pace, especially for the staff and for me especially, because otherwise we will all go insane listening to the same things every day. It's not the most fun thing to do. I mean, I also, when I go out to different bars as well, I'm also curious about their playlists, and I'm just looking up. One of my favorite places to go is Republic Bar, and I really like the music there. Although it's not as fast-paced and upbeat like ours, but they play a lot of the oldie songs, and I sort of stumbled across some old favorites as well. Like the most recent one I remember very clearly was James Taylor. The song is Your Smiling Face, and haven't heard that song in, I don't know, probably a decade and a half. And then when I was there at Republic one night, I was just like, I know this song. What is this song? And then I started Shazam it, and then I got it, and then I was like, oh my god, I miss this song so much. Then I was walking out of Republic, I was listening to the song on my headphones, and I was like, added it to the new playlist. So now it's featured as well. It's just nice, it brings back memories, right? That's what music does. Yeah, so I take a lot of fun and pleasure in creating the music. People enjoy it as well.
I think definitely music definitely makes the mood, and it's a good way to for people to actually really remember the night that they had at a bar. As you view in Republic's. Republic Bar. So I guess another question I wanted to ask you is also that I think like you said, right, Republic Bar, they play an oldie song, and it does evoke so many emotions in you, and also especially with Tippling Club's new menu, where it's really just a decade's worth of most beloved hits, right? So I've noticed also that nostalgia seems to be a rising element in a lot of today's cocktail culture. There's a revival of classic cocktails, and also many of the top bars like Tippling are experimenting with concepts that really throw back to these nostalgic feelings that people have. So why do you think that this trend seems to be rising?
I think remembering the past has always been a social behavior, and it always happens where people always come together, be it new or old friends, talking about the past. I think what the cocktail bar does the best and why it does so well with this phenomenon is also because it combines good memories and also good drinks, and I think that enhances, the social gathering even more. There's not much else to it. I think that's why throwing back to old-time Singapore flavors and old-time music, old-time films, it brings back all those memories and creates conversations. It's just fun to discover something that you might not have known about another person before.
Are there other trends in the cocktail space that you've personally noticed and you've also been quite excited to see how that progresses?
I think now fermentation is taking the lead in the cocktail world. It's growing. A lot of places are doing it now. What fermentation does, it really brings out peculiar flavors that would otherwise not come through if it's used raw. I think this also gives the creator a lot more freedom to use more complementary flavors into a ferment, and also of course adds more complexity to the drink. And fermentation is such an old technique. It dates back to centuries, millennials ago, and it's one of the oldest methods of preservation. So I think it is very interesting to see how fermentation is being brought back now today, and see what it brings to the cocktail world.
Are there ways that you guys use fermentation at Tippling?
Not at the moment. So fermentation is easy to do but hard to get right. Because because you're basically playing with bacteria. Right, and if you're not using a clean vessel, if you're not using clean ingredients, you're not handling it well, it's very easy for it to go bad, and it's quite risky lah. And you don't want any bad bacteria in your drinks. It's going to be risky for the customers especially.
So prior to this, right, you've been working at Tippling Club. Prior to becoming the head bartender, you joined Tippling Club in 2020, and so you've been working at Tippling Club for about,
3 years now.
2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
3 years now, right? And then before you were at Tippling Club, you were at the rooftop bar Loof. So I want to ask a bit more, what were your experiences like at the different bars, and how did that shape your approach to mixology and your view towards the industry?
I think when I first started at Loof in 2018, it was just a part-time job at first. I worked there part-time for about 3 months before I liked the job that much that I converted to full-time. Loof was it was a super fun place. I loved the people there, loved the vibes, loved working there. But it was just super casual, not really something as advanced as what we are doing now. And it's a high volume bar, so basically bartenders, we have to work fast, and we are not really thinking about tasting the drinks as much, or making sure the drink is right as much as you knock out the drinks. It's a dispense bar, right? You just knock out the drinks and then you just work on the next order right away. That experience trained me a lot on speed and how to work efficiently, and especially with a big team, you learn how to work with in teams. And Loof was nothing super special other than it being serving alcoholic bubble tea, which I think is the only one in Singapore to do that. But I think it was more of a really huge group gathering place where it was just nice for people to keep coming back. Great fun, great staff, great colleagues. But in terms of cocktail creation wise, of course now looking back is of course very basic lah. But it's still tasty drinks, right? But it's nothing super advanced. And then in between Loof, I was actually at Staits for 6 months. That was kind of my first taste of finer, more classy style of cocktails. And I was working under Stefano for that 6 months, and that was when I also started learning about batching cocktails, planning for events, and just a little bit more finer side of service. Really, it's a bit more customer forward, where the members, it's a members club. This is before Mandela Club, so it's still a members club, and a lot more customer forward style of service. You just interact more, you have to chat them out more, a bit more small talk, and then creating more bespoke drinks, for example. And then yeah, that was experience. It was nice to have that a bit more premium side of things. A bit more slower pace for sure, but a lot more comfortable as well. But the clientele is definitely different. Sometimes a bit more pressurizing, a bit more emotionally draining than Loof. Loof was still very fun, very easy going kind of a crowd. Yeah.
So when you got to Tippling Club, I guess how coming in to Tippling Club from being in the Staits clan and being in Loof, what was that experience like at first?
Oh, that was a whole new ball game, man. Tippling Club. I was actually really stressed out for the first month because I felt like I was so out of it. I just felt like I wasn't ready for the kind of bar and restaurant that Tippling Club is, and like all the techniques that Andy and Chef Ryan were talking about, or Chef Ayu were talking about, all the ingredients that they were using. I was like, what the hell is this thing? Like, I was just like, I'm just so lost, really. I was just like, I felt like all those 2 years of me being at Loof and Strickland were for nothing. So it was very jarring for me when I first got in here. And I actually expressed that to Andy as well. And I mean, he kept his faith in me and just kept me going. And then I didn't want to like leave the place just because I was feeling uneasy. But it was just quite a new experience for sure. Like I was nervous, but I'm glad I stayed. And where am I going with this?
No, I think like it's quite amazing because if you felt that it was jarring, right?
Yeah.
But then within 2 short years, you became the head bartender. So obviously something went right, and you obviously picked up the ropes like a lot faster than you thought you would.
That was. I mean, I do have a knack for like copying, mimicking people and what they say, and of course getting into information, especially for things that I like, and like really doing things right from the start. So I guess Tippling Club was a good in between of both Loof and Strickland because they are both fine dining service but also quite fun. Like Tippling Club has always been a bit more edgy, a bit more grungy,
Very modern.
a bit more modern, but also kind of casual style in the bar. I wear a vest and a tie and freaking sleeve garters for service, but at the same time, like I can be cheeky with customers, even if they are new people, just to break the ice, just to sort of make them feel relaxed. Because you're coming in here, it's like, oh, they're playing like kind of serious music. It's not really like those modern disco beats kind of music, a bit more, I don't know, serious oldie songs. And I think like when we actually can joke with the customers and poke a little bit of fun, be a little bit edgy with them, and then it makes them feel at home, makes them feel relaxed. It's like, yeah, these guys are not so serious. Like, let's just chill out, man.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's nice that this is like Tippling has been a good in between. We will be professional when we always, but also we like to have our fun appropriately.
Yeah, I think it was very impressive that you very quickly became the head bartender, and you've created this menu after a lot of R&D. And I guess that leads me on to my other question, is that could you tell us a bit more about what the transition was like, going into a more managerial role as a head bartender?
I think being in a leadership position or managerial position is not really new to me. Like throughout my life, yes, apart from being music as a constant, I always held a leadership role in pretty much every stage of my life. Like back in primary school, I was a Boy Scout, which I was appointed a senior sixer when I think I was primary 5. And then in secondary school, I was in a marching band. I got appointed to be the assistant drum major as well, which is no small feat for one of the best bands in Singapore. And then in poly, I was the vice captain for most of my time there. I was there for 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. And then I was vice captain for the cheer team, and I continued on cheering for a long time. And I was always been like considered coach figure style of a person. And then lastly in national service, I was in SCDF. I opted to be the section commander of my station basically. So I was also leading a small group of 3 guys. So being in that position and making decisions, especially in SCDF, really like, because it's a real world situation, you learn how to make critical decisions, give clear instructions, etc. So that really, all those experiences really help shape how I am as a leader now. And I think the hardest part of being a bar manager now, or actually at first, was actually taking myself out of the bar, because I'm no longer just a grunt making drinks for everyone. I have to actually give direction for the bar to hit, and I've also got standards to set for people. No longer following people's standards. So that was the hardest thing for me to do, at least for the first month as well. Like, I'm always so used, especially being behind the bar for the past 2 years, and then having to leave the bar to do paperwork, to do invoices, to do ordering and chasing brands and all that, meeting with new people, doing tastings. It is something very new to me, and I actually have to plan for that to happen. I also have to push my guys to go and really do the operations behind the bar, because I'm no longer with them. I'm supposed to be leading them in a direction that I want them to go. So I have to push them as well. And I mean, that comes with the job, but that was a tough call for myself to make, because that was kind of my comfort zone, right? It's like that's my barrier. So I feel safe being behind the bar. I'm not like on the outside. But now I have to put myself out, and then right now it's normal for me lah. So I've gotten used to it, and it's finding my own balance now, finding my own footing, and also spearheading with the new menu and with new direction that Tippling Club is heading to. I'm very excited.
I think like it's sometimes like the hardest thing is letting go of like
right,
and like trusting other people to do the operations of it. So I want to ask you also about, because apart from this menu, the music themed menu, you guys also offer quite a bit of premium spirits in your cocktail. So there is currently this sort of a debate within mixology where people ask, is there a space to using premium spirits in cocktails? Because some argue that, the quality of a premium spirit can sometimes be, I guess, blunted or like maybe even hidden by other ingredients, like other mixers. But at the same time, right, we know intuitively that when you use higher quality ingredients in a cocktail, it does make it objectively much better. So I guess, where do you stand on this debate?
I think what's important to know is, what is important is to actually understand what each ingredient actually brings forward in the cocktail as a whole. I mean, yes, quality plays a part, but it's not the most important part. I think let's say for example, you want to make an Indian-inspired drink. And then you might want to use an Indian gin, you want to use an Indian whiskey, you want to use an Indian rum, for example, blah, blah, blah. And those products might not be the most premium products to use, but it's more of what makes sense in the cocktail. So it's not really about the quality of the drink, it's really just about maybe what you want to actually tell the story of the cocktail. That bartending nowadays is not really just about using the best things that you can. It's more about, for me personally, it's more about why are you making the things you're making?
But more holistic.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yes, you still want to make a good quality, good tasting drink, but I think as a whole, it has to make sense with, let's say, a menu that you're doing. So our menu has always been concept driven. So likewise for our menu, music menu, and before it was an art menu. So that for me is what I want to look for when I'm tasting drinks or when I'm making drinks. And I think for me, a good bartender will be able to sort of balance out all the different flavors for every ingredient. So I don't think if it's something that's hidden or is being blunted by other ingredients, it's maybe just not a good enough balance. And I think that only comes with really extensive R&D, and even bringing those drinks to taste with higher skilled people, like even the chefs or even the sommeliers, just get a second opinion. Because I have my taste, right? I have my palate, but I will feel more confident if my drink was approved by all these other people from the industry as well. So that gives me the confidence that I'm actually making a good drink, telling them the story of why I'm doing certain things. They might have a second opinion, it's like, I don't really taste this ingredient, why not just leave it out? It's like, one thing less to do, makes the drink simple, or maybe something is missing, maybe you should try adding this and this and this. I think it goes without saying, using premium ingredients will definitely make a better cocktail, but using premium also pushes the cost onto the customers to pay for it. And not everyone will be prepared to do so. I think the challenge is really to balance out the cost and the premium stuff. But at the end of the day, you still want to make a delicious drinks delicious drink that makes sense with your concept and also not blow a hole in the customer's pocket.
So I think like there is a very impressive set of Louis XIII cocktails on Tippling Club's menu. So I guess as an extension of that, like what do you have any tips on how you would work with premium spirits to make sure that the ingredients is respected, that its true flavors, its true qualities are
Louis
brought
XIII
out?
and cocktails that don't go in one sentence, man. Louis XIII is one drink. It is a spirit that most respectfully to enjoy it is really just a drink you need. Yeah. So I think we were very crazy, or at least I was very crazy to create a whole page of 3 Louis XIII cocktails, 1 built and 2 shaken drinks, one with even with orange juice. So that was insane lah. I mean, yeah. But at the same time, we are not charging the super high price. Which is actually costing us quite a bit. Of course, we still have to make a little bit of money out of it, but we're not charging $300 for a drink, for example. So the 3 drinks that we have there, only one of them, the built one, is less blasphemous than the other 2. And yeah, really with such a luxury spirit like Louis the 13th, the only respectful way is to really drink it neat. But because we are at Tippling and we like to have a little bit of fun, and maybe some might call it insanity, seeing that we have emptied 7 Louis XIII bottles in the past 3 years, I think shows that our guests are equally crazy lah. People are actually buying these drinks and people are actually drinking that cognac, whether be it neat or within the cocktails. But it is moving, and I think it's safe to say that probably Tippling Club is the highest trade buyer of the Louis XIII spirit, at least in Singapore.
I mean, you guys are definitely doing something right. You guys are.
I don't see any other places doing that. Or I know they might put it up for show, or I mean, they actually sell it. But I mean, if you don't offer it at a good price, nobody's really going to try. I mean, people are curious about the product, right? Because it's such high premium. But are they really prepared to pay like $400 for a small shot? Not really. So the way we price it, especially for more expensive spirits, we price it a little bit more affordably, so that it's more accessible. Otherwise, I'm not going to be keeping stuff in the bar that's not going to sell. Like, there's no point. So we have to price it smartly lah, in that sense.
I love that, and I think that like in general, the Tippling Club menu, whether or not you're drinking the Louis XIII cocktails or you're drinking the music themed cocktails, there's just so much for anyone to come and explore. So I think you've done a really, really good job with this cocktail menu, and I'm excited for more of our listeners to start to try some of it themselves as well. So I guess thank you so much for sitting down with us for this interview.
Thanks, Caroline.